What's up, you guys? Slasher Movies here, and today I'm going to bring in you guys another segment of 5 in 1. What is this? Is when I bring you guys 5 movie reviews in one video. This is a great way for me personally to play catch up on some movies that I've recently watched that I'd like to talk to you guys about, but just don't have the time to give individual reviews for each film. So let's get started here. The first film up I have for you guys today is a film called Martyrs, starring Ashley Benson from Pretty Little Liars. Honestly, The Den and Unfriended did this movie so much better in my opinion. While I will give it credit, it definitely feels very realistic in its depiction of life, and we're seeing this horror unfold through POV of the killer himself, through his hacking skills, through computers and laptops and cell phones, all that stuff. And I think they do a very good job at making all that feel realistic. The problem is that this movie's all build up to no real payoff. And while I'll admit the ending is somewhat shocking in the moment, you can't help but feel like that's the best you got. That's what we've been working up to. It's all very lackluster. And honestly, this film would have worked a lot better if it was like a 30-minute short. As the score goes, I'm going to give Martyrs a 2 out of 5. The next film up I have for you guys is the remake of Martyrs. Now, the original Martyrs is a grotesque, violent, and extremely brutal film. I've seen it once and will only watch that film once for my sanity's sake. This movie is extremely awful. It's extremely tamed and watered down. Seriously, compare this movie to the original, the remake would get a PG rating. That's how tamed it feels at the end of the day. While the original film would strive to outdo the violence and the grotesque and the brutality of this movie, almost feels like it's trying to do the opposite and cut away. Seriously, one moment in this entire movie that has any sort of violence, and it cuts away from it. It's deprived of any sort of visual style or flair. The acting in this movie is straight up horrible, and honestly, at the end of the day, I was just bored by it, and that is a statement I never thought I would ever say about a remake to Martyrs. But the remake of Martyrs is just straight up boring and probably will go down as the worst horror movie of 2016. As the score goes, I'm going to give the remake of Martyrs a 1 out of 5. And speaking of remakes that didn't need to happen, then our next film is the remake of Cabin Fever. Now look, I'm not the biggest fan of the original Cabin Fever. I think it's an okay film. It has some cool parts to it, but overall, it's not a film that I tend to go back and rewatch from time to time. And honestly, this remake is just a paint-by-number remake of the original film. They even go as far as way to use the original script of the original movie in this movie. They take it extremely serious, and it backfires so badly. All the comedic and campy moments in the original film are taken so serious and deadpan, it becomes extremely awkward and painful to watch. It is just a brutal movie, but in all the wrong ways. All the gory moments are not gory, they're not grotesque. Honestly, the effects look really cheap, and they look better in the original movie. I found myself struggling to finish this movie because I knew where it was going to end. And it was a very pointless remake that just necessarily didn't need to happen. As the score goes, I'm going to give the remake of Cabin Fever a 1.5 out of 5. Our next film is the found footage horror movie, Jeruzalem. Now look, I'm a sympathizer for the found footage genre, and Jeruzalem isn't a found footage movie you would normally rank up at the top of the best, but it's also not a found footage movie you would rank down at below at the worst. It sort of falls in the middle in my opinion. It's a solid found footage entry that offers just enough creativity and just enough scare factor to make it worthy of a late night stream it type of movie. It's shot via Google Glass, and I do think they do a really cool, interesting way of using Google Glass to its advantage. So our main character will open up Google Maps in the midst of mayhem, trying to navigate through the city, which I thought was kind of cool and kind of interesting. As the score goes, I'm going to give Jeruzalem a 3 out of 5. And our last film to talk to you guys about is Road Games, which I thought was a solid thriller. It was an enjoyable time. I did find the twist to be a bit predictable. Nonetheless, the ride was still fun, and I had a fun time watching it. I think this movie does a couple of interesting things. How it sprinkles its clues around to what's going on is very interesting, and I think this movie does some really cool things with language, which I think is probably his strongest suit. Our main character speaks only English, but everyone else in the movie either speaks only French or is bilingual and speaks English and French. So a character would say something, in English or French, and you know that there's already something odd about them in general, but they would say something and it helps play this game of sort of friend or foe. And I think that they do a really good job with that, even though one or two clues are so obvious that you kind of might be able to predict what's going on a little early on. And as the score goes, I would give Road Games a 3 out of 5. So there you have it, you guys. That was my 5-in-1 review. Let me know in the comment section below if you saw any of those 5 films I mentioned in, or you had any interest in seeing any of these films. And until next time, you guys, I'm the Slash Movie Reviewer, and you guys have just been Slash.